So how many tiers do you think exist now? I count 11 of them. First we have the basic tank, then tier 2 tanks, then tier 3 tanks, then tier 4 tanks, and then tier 5 tanks, only accessible in arms race. And now what about the new dreadnoughts? Here you have tier 6, the base, then there's the tier 7 tanks, and this is somehow the one I missed whilst recording this. I thought there was 10. Well, now I know. Next is the tier 8 tanks, and then there's the tier 9 tanks. Tier 10 tanks, which act more like the Celestials than the Celestials themselves. And for the final accessible tier, the tier 11 tanks, the last upgrade for the Dreadnought. And to think this time last year, there were only 4 tiers, and now there's 11. What about next year, 27, 46? How many tiers will there be? However, this isn't all of them. What about those that are not accessible? You have the old Dreadnoughts, which had 3 tiers to them. Next you have the bosses, which if I'm not mistaken, have 5 tiers. They're barely even bosses nowadays, since we have Dreadnoughts, but they still exist, and believe it or not, some of them can still do a lot of damage. So it's only fair to me that I include them. The second tier in the arms race version, the third tier slightly above them, you then have the Celestials, the true Celestials, and then you have the final boss, which is the 5th and final tier. There are probably more tiers now, such as this Legionary Crasher, but I am not going to play the new Siege because of this. So feel free to correct me. You have this, which is hilarious. You have these tanks which are not accessible but still exist. Thanks, developer. Then you have the developer tiers, assuming there are tiers, like one there is beta testers, and then of course the actual developers. But no one beats the developers. This is the true final tier. And I'm not even going to get started on the shapes. I'll leave that to someone else. 11 accessible tiers is enough. Don't forget the script users. They're on a whole nother level. Well, except this one, because they suck. I will call this the -1 tier. So that's all the tiers I can think of. That's what, 20 plus tiers? It's safe to say this game is more complex nowadays than we thought. Arena closers? Is this a tier? The infinite tier. That is all of them, I think.